I grew my ex-wife's father's company to $92 million. Then he grinned and said, her new husband will be taking over. It started with a dinner. Not the kind you remember for what was said, no toast, no argument, no grand declaration, but for what wasn't. For the silence between clinks of silverware, the way the light from the pendant chandelier turned everything a little too gold, too unreal, like we were already frozen in a memory. I remember the linen napkin on my lap, the way Caroline's nails tapped her wine glass in a rhythm she probably didn't even hear. She was wearing the emerald earrings her father gave her when we got engaged. They dangled just slightly when she turned to him and said, "Have you ever thought about retiring?" Mark paused. It wasn't long, maybe a beat or two, but I felt it in the pit of my stomach, the shift. I looked up from the salmon I hadn't touched and saw his eyes cut to me before answering, not long enough to be obvious, just long enough to register. "Not yet," he said, slow and deliberate. "I still enjoy the game." He smiled, that closed-mouth country club smile of his, and Caroline smiled too, but something about hers felt practiced. I reached under the table and let my fingers graze hers. She curled them around mine, warm, familiar, like we were still aligned, still us. But even then, part of me knew I was clinging to something that had already started unraveling. I met Caroline in undergrad, back when I was just some half-lost finance major with no real plan and a thrift store blazer I thought made me look smart. She was the daughter of a man with a name that opened doors in 3 states. Mark Hale, Hale Precision Industries, mid-tier manufacturing firm, family-owned, slow growth. But reliable, old money kind of reliable. She told me she liked that I didn't fawn over her father. I told her I didn't care about wealth. That was true then. I was raised by a single mom who worked retail until her spine gave out. Money wasn't something I chased, it was something I feared losing. Even once I had it later, I never stopped waiting for the floor to give out beneath me. We dated through senior year, moved in together 6 months after graduation. She worked in PR, polished, sharp, and I drifted from job to job until Mark offered me a spot in the family business. Those were his words, said it like he was giving me a sword and asking me to defend a kingdom. I said yes because I didn't know how to say no, not to Caroline, not to the version of myself I saw in her eyes. The company was struggling, the books were a mess, the warehouse outdated. I walked in on my first day and wondered if I'd made a mistake. The office smelled like dust and dying paper. The employees looked exhausted, but I stayed. I read through every document I could get my hands on, spent weekends reworking supply chains, late nights building out pricing models in Excel until my vision blurred. I wasn't trying to prove something to Mark, not at first. I just didn't want to fail. Then something started to shift. I saw the margins tighten, saw red turn to black. I hired a friend from college to redesign the website, found a logistics partner that cut our shipping costs by 18%. We signed our first seven-figure deal the following quarter. Mark slapped my back and called me the numbers kid. I think he meant it as praise. It felt like a leash. Caroline was proud, though. At least that's what I told myself. She'd lean on the doorway of my office after hours and say, "You're making this whole empire thing real." I remember her hair always loose at night, the way her voice would soften when it was just the two of us. "You think my dad respects you?" she asked once, curled into my chest on a Tuesday night. "Maybe," I said. "Does it matter?" She didn't answer, just held on a little tighter. I learned slowly how to navigate Mark, how to bring him results before he asked, how to make him think something was his idea when it was. He liked power, but he liked the illusion of wisdom even more. I gave him both. And in return, I got not approval, but tolerance, proximity. He stopped calling me the help, at least. That felt like a win. We hit $40 M in revenue just before our 5th anniversary. The growth was real, I was proud, and I thought naively that pride was contagious, that if I felt it, he would too, that maybe I was finally something more than the guy who married his daughter. Then came the lake house dinner. Summer, high heat hanging off the water like a second skin. We ate on the patio, the sky bleeding orange and pink behind the treetops. Caroline looked perfect, always did. Even in that moment when I felt the bottom tilting out, she looked like the kind of woman who could make destruction look graceful. The night ended with Mark pouring himself a whiskey and heading inside without another word. Caroline and I stayed on the patio. I asked her if something was wrong. She said no, smiled, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You've been quiet," I said. She took a sip of wine, "just thinking." About. She looked at me like she didn't recognize the question, or maybe the person asking it. The future, she said finally. Then she leaned in, kissed my cheek, and said, "You worry too much." That was the last time I believed her. 3 weeks later, I walked into Mark's office with a stack of quarterly reports. Our latest valuation, $92 million, was printed at the top of the packet. I'd underlined it. I was proud, even if I didn't show it. I handed him the papers, expecting, I don't know, a handshake, a nod, some acknowledgement that I'd built something worth seeing. He didn't look up. "You've done good work," he said. That should have been a red flag. Mark never complimented unless there was a transaction in progress. He leaned back, hands folded across his gut, the kind of posture that let you know who owned the desk. And then, casual as if commenting on the weather, he said, "Her new husband will be taking over." The room got so quiet I could hear the hum of the overhead lights. "What?" I said. He looked at me like I was hard of hearing. "Caroline's new husband, Tyler, bright kid, Stanford MBA, he'll be stepping in." The words didn't make sense at first, like a bad translation. I blinked. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. "A new husband." Mark smiled, not kindly. "It's been in the works for a while. Caroline didn't tell you." The only thing I could feel was my heart, pulsing hard in my throat, like it was trying to climb out. "She left?" I asked. "She moved on. These things happen." He stood like the meeting was over. "You're smart. You'll land on your feet." I didn't remember leaving his office. I didn't remember walking to my car. I sat in the driver's seat and just stared at the dash. My hands didn't stop shaking for an hour. Somewhere, someone was mowing a lawn. Somewhere, people were laughing on a patio, clinking glasses, talking about IPOs and renovations and second honeymoons. And in my chest, something broke, quietly, finally. Not like glass, not like thunder. Like a breath I didn't know I'd been holding, letting go. You always think the world ends with a sound, a bang, a scream, a slammed door, but for me it ended in silence. It was a Tuesday. I sat in the car for what felt like years, the engine off, the summer heat warping the air outside the windshield, and I couldn't move. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there, staring at my own reflection in the dark screen of the infotainment system, as if I could find something in it, some explanation, some warning I had missed. I should have known. That's the thing I kept coming back to. All the signs were there in hindsight. The way she stopped asking about my day, the way she deflected when I mentioned kids, the way she started saying you when she used to say we. But I was too focused on the business, too caught up in earning my place in a world that never really wanted me in it to begin with. The days after that were a blur of boxes and signatures. I moved into a one-bedroom above a dive bar downtown. The stairs creaked and the walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor arguing with her boyfriend every other night. The place smelled like cigarette smoke and spilled beer, and I didn't unpack for the first week. I lived out of 2 suitcases, ate Chinese takeout straight from the carton, drank tap water from a wine glass I bought at Goodwill just to feel something like dignity. Every morning I woke up expecting the pain to have passed. It didn't. It hung in the air like humidity, soaked into my skin. I'd check my phone, hoping for a message that never came. I made a mistake maybe, or just, "Are you okay?" But there was nothing, just junk mail and bank alerts. People reached out, a few former coworkers, Caroline's cousin, even my old roommate from college. "Heard what happened. That's rough, man." They all meant well, but their words felt like foam on a fire, useless. No one really wanted to sit in the ashes with me. They wanted me to bounce back, be a story they could point to later. Look at how he rebuilt. Look at how strong he was. But I wasn't strong. I was wrecked. There was a moment, maybe a week in, where I seriously considered driving back to the lake house, just to ask, not even to win her back. I just wanted to know why she didn't tell me, why she let me keep building a future she'd already decided to leave. I needed to make sense of it because the version of her that lived in my mind wouldn't have done this. And if that version wasn't real, what the hell had I been loving for the last 7 years? Instead of driving to the lake, I walked, just walked, hours at a time, through downtown, past shuttered stores and late-night diners, through parks where teenagers passed joints and old men fed pigeons. I walked because moving felt better than sitting. Sitting made me think, walking dulled the edges. That's how I met Malik. It was raining, and I ducked into this tiny coffee shop with flickering lights and bad jazz playing through an old Bluetooth speaker. I was soaked, dripping on the tile floor, and the guy behind the counter, Malik, offered me a towel, just like that. No judgment, no weirdness. He made me a coffee and asked if I wanted to sit for a bit. We started talking. I don't even remember about what at first. Nothing deep, music maybe. I just remember his laugh, loud and real, like it came from his gut, and how it made me feel like I wasn't invisible anymore. Like someone actually saw me, not just the collapse I'd become. He told me he was working on an app, something with local marketplaces and small business exposure. I didn't even ask to help. He just looked at me one day and said, "You seem like you know shit, want in?" I laughed. I've got nothing else going on. And that was it. We started working out of his apartment, sketching wireframes on pizza boxes, writing code between sips of cheap beer. It was messy and amateur and completely unglamorous, but it gave me something to do with my hands, something to build, even if it was small, even if it went nowhere. I wasn't thinking about success. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was just trying to remember what it felt like to make something that didn't hurt. I didn't tell Malik about Caroline, not at first. I didn't want to see that look, the one people give when they're trying to hide their pity. But one night we were 3 whiskeys in and arguing about UX design, and it all just poured out. The company, the dinner, her new husband, Mark's grin. Malik didn't interrupt, didn't give advice, he just listened. "You loved the wrong people," he said after a long silence. "That doesn't make you stupid, it makes you human." That was the first time I let myself cry, quietly, just for a few seconds. But it felt like opening a window in a room that had been closed for too long. The nights were still hard. I still woke up some mornings with her name in my mouth like a phantom taste. I still checked her social media once or twice, saw her smiling next to Tyler, her new last name tagged in clean sans serif font. But slowly the sharpness faded, the obsession dulled. I stopped replaying the moment in Mark's office, stopped trying to rewrite it. Because what was the point? I didn't get closure, I got silence. And sometimes silence is the answer. So I kept walking, kept showing up to Malik's place, kept building something I didn't have to earn with blood or guilt, something that belonged to me not because someone allowed it, but because I made it. And for the first time in months, I felt like I might be okay. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. The first time I saw her again, I didn't recognize her at first. Isn't that funny? You spend years memorizing someone, the way they talk, the way they brush their hair behind their ear, how their face folds when they're holding back a smile, and then one day they're standing 10 feet away and it's like your brain refuses to make the connection. Like it's protecting you. It was at a gala, some industry fundraising event Malik got invited to by a VC we were courting. I didn't want to go. I was still wearing the same 2 dress shirts on rotation, still reeling from the smell of boxed noodles on my clothes most nights. But Malik said, "You need to show your face, remind people you still exist." He said it kindly like a friend, but I heard the truth underneath it: "You're disappearing again. Come back." So I shaved, put on the blazer I hadn't worn since Caroline's father handed me my pink slip dressed as a handshake, and walked into a hotel ballroom full of polished teeth and too much cologne. The lights were dim, the music low, jazz again, always fucking jazz, and the walls were lined with silent auction items no one really wanted. I was sipping flat champagne, counting the minutes till I could slip out when I heard her laugh. I knew that laugh, could have picked it out in a war zone, light and warm, slightly lower than people expected from her frame. I turned before I could stop myself. She was at the far end of the room, in a red dress, of course, red, her hair pulled back in that clean, effortless way she used to do when she wanted to look like she hadn't tried. Tyler was beside her, one hand on the small of her back, like she was a trophy, and he was just making sure no one touched the merchandise. She looked good, not better, not happier, just good, like she'd never lost anything. Like she hadn't once whispered, "This is forever," into my neck as we lay tangled in the blankets on that first October night in our old apartment. I should have walked away. I should have turned and found the bathroom and stared into the mirror until my chest stopped squeezing. But I didn't. My legs carried me forward like I owed her something, like I had permission. She saw me, her face flickered one breath's worth of surprise and then settled into something polite. neutral. Hi, I said. Hi, she replied. Just that, no, how are you? No, I've been meaning to reach out. Just a single syllable, like the space between us was nothing but air, like she hadn't erased an entire life without looking back. Tyler offered his hand. Tyler. I took it. His grip was firm, self-assured in the way of men who have never had to build themselves from scratch. I know, I said, you're the new me. He laughed like it was a joke. Caroline's smile tightened. I didn't know you'd be here. Neither did I. We stood in silence for a moment, all three of us, surrounded by people laughing and drinking and pretending to care about silent auctions. I looked at her, really looked, and tried to find the person I'd loved. She was gone, or maybe she'd never been there in the way I thought. Maybe I'd filled in too many blanks with hope. You never called, I said finally, not once. Her eyes softened, not with regret, just with that practiced empathy she wore like a jacket. I didn't think it would help. You didn't think it would help, I almost laughed. For who? She didn't answer, just glanced toward Tyler like maybe we were done here. I turned to Mark. He was across the room, drink in hand, schmoozing some developer in a plaid blazer. Same smug tilt to his chin, same half-drunk gleam in his eyes. I walked over. Caroline didn't stop me. Mark, I said. He turned, and for a second I saw his face fall, just a fraction. Then came the grin, like it had been waiting in his pocket. Well, look who's here, he said. Didn't expect to see you back in the mix. You built that company to $92 million in valuation, I said. My voice was calm, too calm. You remember that, right? He gave me a slow nod. I remember you doing some solid work, yes. Some solid work, that was what I got, after everything. I made it what it is, I said. I bled for that company, you gave me a desk, I gave you everything else. He shrugged, and we all moved on. That was it, no apology, no acknowledgement, just the shrug of someone who never really saw me as real. I looked back at Caroline. Why didn't you just tell me? Why did you let me keep building something you already knew you were going to take away? Her face folded just for a moment, and I thought I saw it. The girl I met at that party in college. The girl who told me, drunk on wine and defiance, I want to build something that lasts. She looked at me and said, because it was easier. Oh, easier. Two words, and I felt something in me crack, not violently, not like a broken bone, more like a shift, tectonic, slow, inevitable. Like the final click in a puzzle I'd been twisting for months. It wasn't rage that filled me, not anymore, it wasn't even grief. It was freedom. I didn't say goodbye, I didn't make a scene. I just turned and walked away, out into the night, past the valet, past the murmured compliments and the clinking glasses. My breath fogged the air as I stepped into the cold, and for the first time since that Tuesday in Mark's office, I felt the pressure in my chest loosen. I didn't need closure, I didn't need them to see me. I didn't need the company or the house or the damn chandelier over the lake house dinner table. I just needed to leave. And so I did. Some endings don't announce themselves, they just finish. The door closes behind you, the air changes, and no one claps, no one cries, it's just you breathing. I didn't rush back inside the hotel that night. I walked for blocks, hands in my pockets, blazer open to the cold. My breath fogged in the air, and I watched it like it might tell me something. I remember the sound of my shoes on wet pavement, how the streetlights made puddles look like mirrors. I caught my reflection in one of them, blurry, distorted, and thought, there you are. It wasn't triumph, I didn't feel like I'd won. No swelling music, no catharsis, just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like a beginning, even if it's cracked around the edges. Back at my apartment, the radiator hissed like it always did, and the ceiling fan clicked softly above me. I poured a glass of water and sat on the floor. That was my ritual by then's, floor, not couch. I liked the weight of it, grounded, real. I kept thinking about what she'd said because it was easier. I hated that sentence, not because it wasn't true, but because it was. That's what made it so hard to shake. I knew her well enough to understand she wasn't cruel. She just didn't have it in her to sit with the mess. So she'd slipped out the back door and let the wreckage fall on me. But that night, and this is what surprised me, I didn't want to fix it anymore. I didn't want to win her back or make her regret it or rebuild the company just to show them I could. I didn't even want revenge, I wanted peace. I wanted to wake up and not feel like every breath was a negotiation with the past. So I got quiet. I stopped checking her social media. I deleted the photos, not in a rage, just gently, like I was folding up something I didn't need anymore. I stopped walking past our old apartment, stopped rehearsing conversations I'd never get to have. Instead, I woke up and worked. Malik and I moved into a tiny co-working space with peeling paint and a busted coffee machine that made more noise than caffeine. But it was ours. We named the company something stupid, a combination of two words that sounded vaguely futuristic, and we laughed about how no one would ever spell it right. I took the lead on operations. Malik handled code, we bootstrapped everything. We stayed up late, argued about UX, celebrated our first paying user with a bag of gas station donuts. It was nothing like Hail Precision, and that was the point. I started rebuilding slowly from the inside, not just my career, but myself. The self that existed before Caroline, before Mark, before the idea that I had to earn love by being useful, by producing, by fixing. That old version of me, the one who stayed up until 2 a.m. rewriting inventory software just for a nod of approval, he was gone, and I didn't miss him. I read more, started therapy, not because I had some grand goal, just because I wanted to learn how to sit with myself, how to not flinch at silence, how to not collapse every time something I loved was taken away. Some mornings I still woke up with her name in my mind, not painfully, just like a song that lingered longer than it should. But now when that happened, I didn't chase it, I let it pass. I made coffee, I opened my laptop, I moved forward. There was a woman I met at a bookstore around month 8 Knoll. She was wearing headphones and humming to herself in the poetry section. We talked, shared a laugh, grabbed coffee. I didn't tell her everything, not right away, but I didn't lie either. I told her I was rebuilding, that I didn't have everything figured out. She smiled. Good, the ones who say they do are usually full of shit. I liked her. We took it slow, we still are. It's been a year now, the company's modest but growing. We have real users, real revenue, not millions, but it's clean. No one's pulling strings behind my back. No one's telling me I don't belong. It's not an empire, it's something better. It's mine. I keep a photo of my old office at Hale Precision in a drawer. Not framed, just a printout. Some days I take it out and look at it, not with anger, not even regret. Just as a reminder, you can lose everything and still be whole. You just have to choose what wholeness means. For me, it wasn't power, it wasn't recognition. It was sitting in a chair in a room I helped build with people who saw me not as a tool but as a person. Some nights I still dream about Caroline, about the lake house, the chandelier, the way her hand felt when she used to squeeze mine under the table back when I believed we were building something true. I let the dream run its course. Then I wake up, stretch, and feel the weight of this new life around me, smaller maybe, but honest. I've stopped measuring my worth in dollar signs and proximity to legacy. I don't need to be someone's chosen. I don't need to be saved. I'm here, still standing, still building. And quietly, intentionally. And this time I won't give it away.